Hi and welcome to this Taurus inspired reading for July 2025. I am working with the symbolism of the tarot and Western astrology to look deeper into layers of consciousness, to maybe uncover new truths and to gain new perspectives. I am not a fortune teller. I'm merely working with the cards as a creative tool for self-reflection. So let's see what wants to come out at this time. I'm excited and I'm very curious what we want to talk about today. All right, Taurus. Uranus just moved out of your sign, which is maybe a relief. No more crazy surprises all the time. So now Gemini has to deal with it, or the Gemini house. And yeah, oh, the Knight of Swords wants to come out first, and he's already flipping out. The Knight of Swords is a great card when it comes to really tapping into our logical mind to have a good strategy for how we want to move forward. He is the logical, the analytical, the smart knight, and as you can see in this card, he's very, very fast. So this is a combination of fire and air, so that obviously is very fast, and he has these two swords in his hands, and he is very much clear about where he wants to go, and he wants to go there fast. So we can really use this Knight of Swords for analyzing, for strategizing, for figuring out things in our logical mind, and for gaining a clear perspective of where we want to go. So this is a very, very beautiful card here to really have fast results, also when you really want to think something through, when you kind of want to build a plan, and when you want to stay rational about things. He's also connected to air signs, so this would be Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. We're coming out of a Princess of Cups. This is an interesting combination. Maybe you're dealing with a lot of people right now because we have two court cards here. And the Princess of Cups, she is a very open-hearted person. She has a very young, fresh energy. The princesses in general are represented by young energy. So these are the youngest court cards in the deck, and she has a lot to offer on an emotional level, especially. She often is also referred to as the maiden or the helper or the assistant, because she's really very, very distant, I want to say, from her ego. She probably hasn't learned yet so much to develop her ego, which is okay, but she's much more on a journey where she's developing her emotional realm. So she's really open to learning on an emotional level, and she's really open to giving as well. And for us, it really means that we can open ourselves up emotionally to new experiences. This is also somewhat of a romantic card, of course, so it can have to do with romantic love, but it doesn't have to be. It's much more about really tapping into your heart space and being unfazed and not so cynical about emotional experiences. So this is a very young, fresh and clean energy, kind of a virginal energy in a way, but she also has a lot to offer, of course, and she has a very good sense to feel herself through also, and to be of service and of help as well, because she really wants to have the experience. She really wants to learn, she really wants to grow, she is really open to figuring out more about her inner life, and therefore she is very, very open to experiences. So this is an interesting combination because we have two really nice one contrast, actually, two really nice cards that are kind of contradictory, but maybe we can now make a little bit of a 180, where we're coming out of this very open emotional space into a more rational and logical space. Of course, the knights are more evolved, they are more grown up, they are more mature, and the princesses are, don't want to say immature necessarily, but they are not as experienced. So when we are in a position where we really open ourselves up without prejudice, without, being jaded, then sometimes it's quite smart to make a quick move into the other direction and be like, okay, now I maybe have to tap into a more rational position within myself and into a more logical and analytical position, because here we can of course be a little too open or vulnerable for people surrounding us. But yeah, it can also represent the environment, and if there's a lot of people, and especially young people or kids in your environment, this would be also meeting them a little bit from a rational level. And with the Knight of Swords, we might even have to be a little bit protective of that very open and soft energy, and we might have to be a little more discerning when it comes to exposing ourselves into the world. But yeah, you could definitely deal with people here, because it's 2 court cards, as I said, water signs and air signs. A Princess of Cups can be referred to also as water signs, which is Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer. Right, so we're moving into Ace of Wands. That is fascinating. We have no Earth here, which is not 100% true, because the princesses also represent Earth, but we do have an Ace of Wands here, which is kind of like the inspiration maybe we are getting out of that contrast, out of that, on one hand, very emotional, open mindset, or more heart set, I want to say, and on the other hand, this very rational and fast and quick mindset. So there, in this combination, I feel like there is some new flame building up within us, which would be represented by the Ace of Wands. And the Ace of Wands is really this kick, this inspiration, this ignition, this moment where we're like, yes, I want to go, I want to move forward. I have this new spark within me. Spark is probably the best word. The aces in general are not the actual materialization of an element. They are more like the initiation, or the initial impulse of an element. So we are really stepping into something new, and this is coming towards us. And I think the more we tap into the rational and into the controlled, the more we're going to feel that impulse moving forward and that direction. Because the Ace of Wands is kind of the beginning of a feeling within us that builds up into a direction. So we start having this motivation, we start having this inspiration to move into a more active, a more motivated, a more creative direction, and maybe a very new thing as well, and probably a very new thing because it's an ace. So the aces talk about a new thing. And the Knight of Swords, he, as I mentioned, has the fire within him. So by pulling back from this very open, emotional, giving state into a more rational and confined, clear line, I want to say, because clear and straight line is something that always comes up for me with the Knight of Swords, because he is just a very, very determined energy that goes a very, very straight line. Because when you go so fast, you need to go straight. It is what it is. You cannot really risk getting out of the way, because it's just gonna, you're probably gonna crash. So out of this mind space of having the idea where you want to go, also the inspiration comes to act, which is amazing. I love it. What's on the bottom of the deck? Ooh, the Hermit. Yes, the Hermit. Here we have our Earth energy, is also a Virgo card, and the Hermit is talking about really finding the light and the inner wisdom within yourself. So maybe we've drawn back from people, maybe we've reclused a little bit, maybe we took back our energy, and I don't want to say isolated necessarily, but really went within to find the way. This is what the Hermit does, and he's a very, very, very productive energy as well. So sometimes when we think of the Hermit, we think of somebody sitting on the mountain and meditating, but he in reality is a very, very creative and productive energy, and he's paving his own way one step at a time. And that's why he's also looking on the ground, and he's carrying this light that is also just lighting the next step for him. He doesn't even need to know where he wants to go in the long term, even though with the Knight of Swords we might have that idea what's the long-term goal or what's the faraway goal. But he is much more in the moment, taking the next step, paving his own way with his own wisdom that he has within himself. Very, very beautiful. So let's look at relationships. Relationships. This could be any relationship, doesn't have to be romantic. It could be romantic, of course. It could be also energies that you're attracting right now or that are in your environment and that you might want to maybe know more about. Outside influences. I don't read for pets. I read for humans. So just clarifying that for you. Let's see what this other person or this other people are represented by here in the cards. Ooh, High Priestess. I love that because you're dealing with people who might be very spiritual at this time. Maybe you're dealing with a Pisces. This is a Pisces card. And who might be very tapped into the sixth sense, I want to say. The High Priestess is a very, very spiritual entity, I want to call it. She is a very, very tapped into the universe type of gal, you know, and she really knows how to be discerning without having to talk much. She is often referred to as non-verbal, sensing herself through, also maybe being a little bit or staying a little bit hidden and non-transparent, but she is not a liar in that sense. She is just like navigating things on a different level, and she has a much deeper, more ancient knowledge about energies moving. So language is probably not her thing, but she knows how to work the matrix, if you want to call it like that. So in general, when this is a person or people are representing you, then it's really like somebody teaching you through their own spirituality maybe, or people surrounding you who are very tapped into their own inner realm, and therefore the connection also to a more higher force or to a divine realm. They can teach you a lot by just existing or by just moving or by just not moving. She is also actually not really moving. She is really navigating. I like to call it navigating. She knows that she is in the moment at the right space at the right time, and she knows that every point that she's reaching in every second is the right place to be, and she really feels herself into her own development on a more deeper spiritual level, something that we cannot necessarily sense or see in the 3D. So she's a somewhat ethereal type of energy as well. All right, so we are here with the King of Wands. Wow, okay, this is completely opposite, because he's all about the ego, you know, and I'm not saying the ego as in toxic ego, I'm just saying the ego as in the life force that drives us humans forward. And this has a lot to do, obviously, with the Ace of Wands. So there is a lot of action, a lot of movement, and a lot of motivation to move, to get going, to make things happen, maybe in relationships. And another person might really be good at absorbing that right now and just taking that in and maybe even transforming that for you. And somehow, for me, in this picture, it also comes through that a person might also calm you down a little, or that huge flame that the King of Wands is carrying here, and that huge fire, because he's fire and fire, he's double fire, might be a little chilled down by the High Priestess, which is not a bad thing. So you might want to surround yourself with people a little bit who help you to balance out that force, that very strong force that really pushes you forward, or that really catapults you forward. I even want to say that huge motivation, because those people can kind of maybe assist on a little bit of a more spiritual and calm level. I'm not saying the King of Wands is necessarily non-spiritual, but he's very much driven by I even want to say survival, making things happen. It's a very strong like survival mechanism, but it's a very evolved one in a sense that he just wants to experience the world and make things happen right now, and he comes from a good place. The High Priestess is a little more tapped into the trust that things will happen anyway, if you know what I mean. So there is not this type of anxiety or drive, which is kind of on the same spectrum, you know, and we are not sure where one begins and the other one ends. But this High Priestess can be quite helpful to maybe help us not move into the areas that are a little dangerous, because the King of Wands, he doesn't care about danger. He's a very courageous guy. He's like, oh, the devil is over there, let's talk to this guy, he looks fun. But the High Priestess knows like, well, I'm gonna stay here. If the devil comes my direction, I will beware, but I'm not gonna step over there because I know what's gonna happen if I move into that. So yes, there is a controlling element here, maybe in relationships, where it's like we might be drawn out of all that life force and all that willpower to go places and to make things happen. We might be drawn into directions that are a little, it might get a little obsessive, and somebody might sense that in our environment on a more spiritual is not necessarily the best word, on a deeper level, that we don't need to get all hesitated. I'm just thinking why this word wants to come out. I think the High Priestess is getting a little hesitated, but the King of Wands is not, and the High Priestess wants probably the King of Wands to get a little hesitated. I know this is kind of confusing, but I think you know what I mean with the King of Wands and the Devil energy. There is a danger in getting too obsessive about moving forward. That's what I'm sensing here. Seven of Pentacles, yes, exactly. There is this moment of asking to wait, to reflect, to make a little bit of a pause and look at what works in relationships and what doesn't, and to kind of calm your horses, quite literally, because this horse, not very calm. This horse, not very calm. So the Seven of Pentacles is really about holding your horses a little bit when it comes to working together with people, and really looking at what's actually needed, not so much than just charging forward into a direction, because it can get us into trouble. It can get us into some sort of confinement where we are like trapped in a situation, or we are trapped in an idea of where we want to go, and that would be the devil, and he works with that, of course. Like, why do I want to have that thing, like, just because, you know? It's like, is it just because I want it, or is there actually a cause? And that's what we are reflecting with the Seven of Pentacles here. And I think you can do that wonderfully right now with people surrounding you, to be able to really have a clearer idea and a better idea of what is actually needed. Because the King of Wands is also this guy who is like doing all the things just for doing, just for the sake of doing. And it's a lot of action, and it can burn us out if we are not careful. With the Seven of Pentacles, we're actually asking, we don't have to do all the things. There is probably just specific and certain things that need to be done right now. And we're going to figure out what that is by really looking at the results we have right now, especially in relationships. And we want to figure out how to optimize our workload and our work that we put into relationships. I'm saying work because the Pentacles, for me, speak in relationships of this type of relationship work that we have to do every day. And really the building and the putting in and the investing that we can gain results. And we've come very far with the Seven of Pentacles, but we are also in a place where this card is called success unfulfilled. That doesn't mean that we don't have success, it's just not the type of success that we want to achieve. So that's why we're taking a pause, looking at this and looking at what we've created right now and looking a little closer of what we actually need, the details, which would be then in the next card, in the Eight of Pentacles, be the things we implement. All right, I like it. One more oracle card real quick. Ugh, always two, but this is just because this deck is so slippery. Eccentricity. Maybe you're dealing with a Aquarius. This seems like an odd coupling right now, where it becomes obvious that this whole situation might be a little eccentric, which is fine. I think it is really about expressing maybe all your ideas and kind of brainstorming maybe with a partner or with other people, and then figuring out what is gone too far or what is going too far, where we get ourselves into danger, or what is kind of also more accurate in the situation. But I think it's staying eccentric is still a good idea, and to also communicate and explore this eccentricity and this otherness would be a very good idea right now in relationships, I think. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. Please check out my description box and like, subscribe, comment, and come back. And I hope I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.